My name is Michelle, and I am a woman who once believed the worst battles in life happened outside the body. I was wrong. The most dangerous battles happen inside the mind, in the quiet hours when the world is still and your thoughts begin to turn against you. This testimony is being shared here on the YouTube channel God's Grace, Stories of Redemption, where real stories of broken lives and difficult faith are told with honesty. For years, my mind felt like a place I could not escape. I could finish responsibilities, hold conversations, and smile politely in public. But inside, my thoughts were restless, circling old mistakes, feeding fears, and whispering lies that slowly poisoned the way I saw myself. Like many women, I carried pressure quietly. I tried to be strong for everyone else. I tried to keep peace in conversations that were tense, hold relationships together, and prove that I could carry burdens without asking for help. But when the house became silent and there was no one left to perform strength for, the thoughts returned. Regret, shame, fear, memories of words spoken in anger, and decisions that had wounded people I loved. The mind can become a prison when it is filled with voices that constantly remind you of who you used to be. I helped build that prison myself. Pride kept me from admitting how deeply I had hurt people. Fear convinced me that if I ignored the damage long enough, it would eventually fade away. Instead, the damage followed me quietly, growing heavier with every day I refused to face it. The result was a mind that never rested. My thoughts became darker, sharper, more relentless. Nighttime was the worst. Lying awake in the dark, my mind replayed every failure like a courtroom where the verdict was always guilt. Then came the night everything shifted. There was no dramatic moment, no thunder, no sudden miracle, just exhaustion from fighting thoughts that never seemed to end. I remember sitting alone in the dim light of a quiet room, realizing that if something did not change inside my mind, I would spend the rest of my life trapped there. That was when a verse surfaced in my memory, a verse I had heard many times but never truly obeyed. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Those words confronted me with a choice. My mind had been feeding on darkness, fear, regret, accusation, but Scripture was commanding me to change what I allowed my thoughts to consume. That night, I made a decision that felt small, but changed everything. I stopped agreeing with every thought that entered my mind. I began rejecting lies and replacing them with truth. It was not instant. Some nights the battle returned, but something inside me had changed. My mind no longer belonged to fear. My name is Michelle, and the night I took my mind back was the night I stopped letting darkness narrate my life. And this testimony is shared here on God's Grace, Stories of Redemption, where broken lives remember the moment truth becomes louder than the lies.
If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that grace is still writing chapters you haven't seen yet, don't keep that hope to yourself. There is someone in your life who needs to hear this tonight. Share this message with them. Take a moment to like this video so more hearts searching for redemption can find it. And subscribe to God's Grace, Stories of Redemption, so you never miss the next story God is unfolding. Because Scripture reminds us, because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His mercies never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. That means no story is finished, no failure is final, no night is permanent. And the next testimony, the next breakthrough, the next story of redemption may be closer than you think. Stay tuned, stay expectant. And remember, grace is still at work. We'll see you in the next story.
The day I chose peace over panic, Psalm 46:10. And I am a woman who spent most of her life hiding fear behind the appearance of strength. People often say women are strong in quiet ways. And for years, I believed that meant carrying everything alone. I carried worry, regret, responsibility, and the silent pressure to keep my life together even when it was slowly unraveling inside me. The story you are hearing is my testimony, shared here on the YouTube channel God's Grace, Stories of Redemption, where real stories of broken lives and hard-earned faith are told honestly. For most of my life, fear controlled the way I lived. I woke up every morning already bracing for the next problem, the next mistake, the next consequence, waiting somewhere ahead of me. Panic felt normal. It lived in the tightness in my chest, in the sleepless nights when my thoughts refused to slow down, and in the constant feeling that something terrible could happen at any moment. I convinced myself that if I stayed alert enough, if I stayed in control, nothing could truly destroy me. Like many women, I learned how to keep moving even when my heart was exhausted. I could finish responsibilities, hold conversations, and smile politely while something inside me was quietly breaking apart. But when the house became silent and there was no one around to perform strength for, the truth became impossible to ignore. I was tired of carrying fear everywhere I went. The truth was painful. I had made choices that hurt people. I had damaged relationships that once meant everything to me. Pride and fear pushed me to defend mistakes instead of confess them. I told myself I was protecting my life, but the truth was I was protecting my ego. And every time I avoided the truth, the panic inside me grew stronger. The morning everything changed began quietly. Nothing dramatic announced itself, but something inside me felt different. My hands trembled as I sat alone, facing the consequences of decisions I had spent years trying to ignore. And my thoughts started racing the way they always did when fear took control. Then, in the middle of that chaos, a verse surfaced in my mind like a calm voice cutting through the storm. Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Those words stopped me. Be still, not control everything, not fix every consequence, not run from the truth, just be still. For the first time in years, I obeyed that command. I stopped fighting the moment and allowed the silence to remain in the room. I let the consequences of my past stand in front of me without trying to manipulate them away. Nothing magical happened in that instant. The problems were still real, and apologies still needed to be spoken because redemption does not erase the past. It transforms the person who must walk forward from it. But something inside me shifted that day, and the fear that once ruled my life lost its authority. My name is Emily, and the day I chose peace over panic, and this testimony is shared here on God's Grace, Stories of Redemption, where broken lives remember the moment fear loses its power and faith finally speaks louder.
If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that grace is still writing chapters you haven't seen yet, don't keep that hope to yourself. There is someone in your life who needs to hear this tonight. Share this message with them. Take a moment to like this video so more hearts searching for redemption can find it. And subscribe to God's Grace, Stories of Redemption, so you never miss the next story God is unfolding. Because Scripture reminds us, because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His mercies never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. That means no story is finished, no failure is final, no night is permanent. And the next testimony, the next breakthrough, the next story of redemption may be closer than you think. Stay tuned, stay expectant. And remember, grace is still at work. We'll see you in the next story.
There was a season in my life when silence felt heavier than any storm I had ever faced. It was not the kind of silence you hear in an empty room. It was the kind that sits inside your chest and refuses to move. I prayed, I waited. I looked for answers that never seemed to come. And slowly, quietly, a question began growing in the back of my mind. Where was God? I had always believed faith was supposed to feel strong, clear, certain. But that season felt like walking through fog that never lifted. Every day I carried the same weight. Mistakes from my past followed me like shadows that refused to stay behind me. I had hurt people, broken trust, burned through chances I didn't deserve in the first place. The consequences of those years did not disappear just because I wanted a different life. So when the silence came, part of me believed I deserved it. I remember opening a Bible one night when the house was quiet and the thoughts in my head were loud. My eyes landed on something that felt strangely familiar to my own struggle. Psalm 13. The words were not polished or gentle, they sounded desperate. How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Psalm 13, verses 1 through 6. That passage hit me harder than I expected because it sounded like someone saying out loud what I had been afraid to admit. Even David, a man who walked with God, had moments where heaven felt silent. For the first time, I realized something important. Silence does not mean absence, but trusting God in silence is one of the hardest things a person can do. The truth is, that season exposed things in me I had ignored for years. My pride, my stubbornness, the way I used to chase control instead of surrender. I wanted quick answers, quick relief, quick redemption. But real change rarely happens that way. There were days when my faith stumbled, days when the old thinking tried to return, days when it felt easier to walk away from trust than to keep believing through the quiet. But something small began changing inside me. Instead of demanding answers, I started choosing trust. Not because everything suddenly made sense, but because I realized God was still shaping something inside the silence. Slowly the fog began to thin. Not all at once, and not in dramatic ways, but enough for me to see that the silence had never meant abandonment. It meant refinement. The season that once felt like punishment became the place where my faith grew roots instead of just words. I stopped chasing immediate rescue and started learning quiet dependence. And looking back now, I see something I could not see then. God had not disappeared. He was working in the silence the entire time. That is why this story is told here, because sometimes the deepest faith is born in the quietest seasons. And this testimony now lives on this channel. God's grace, stories of redemption.
If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that grace is still writing chapters you haven't seen yet, don't keep that hope to yourself. There is someone in your life who needs to hear this tonight. Share this message with them. Take a moment to like this video so more hearts searching for redemption can find it. And subscribe to God's Grace, Stories of Redemption, so you never miss the next story God is unfolding. Because Scripture reminds us, because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His mercies never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. That means no story is finished, no failure is final, no night is permanent. And the next testimony, the next breakthrough, the next story of redemption may be closer than you think. Stay tuned, stay expectant. And remember, grace is still at work. We'll see you in the next story.